Hello, and welcome to Short Stories, brought to you by the National Taichung University of Science and Technology Language Center. Today's short story is called The Princess and the Pea. This is one of Hans Christian Andersen's most iconic stories. It's about a young prince who has very little luck with dating. Some academics have claimed that this story reflects Andersen's love-hate relationship with the Danish aristocracy. He desperately wanted to be a member, but was never fully accepted. That's why I decided to do this story. I found that interesting. Anyway, before I read the story, I will read the vocabulary and example sentences. After the story, I will read 4 listening comprehension questions. Let's begin. Vocabulary. Festive. Festive. The partygoers enjoyed the festive atmosphere. Picky. Picky. Children are very picky about their food. Dowry. Dowry. The bride's father paid a large dowry. Belch. Belch. It is rude to belch at the dinner table. Prestigious. Prestigious. Tom graduated from the most prestigious university in the country. Etiquette. Etiquette. You must follow good etiquette when you attend a formal dinner. Pretentious. Pretentious. This author's books are too complicated and pretentious. Sensitive. Sensitive. In this story, sensitive has 2 different meanings. One is 体贴的, which means something like considerate or thoughtful. And the other meaning is 敏感的, which means basically you are very sensitive to touch. So your sense of touch is very sensitive. And this double meaning is on purpose. So we have 2 example sentences. Number 1, she was a kind and sensitive mother. The second one, too much sunlight can damage sensitive skin. And now the story. Once upon a time, there was a handsome prince. He lived in a big castle with his mother. Since his father's death, she had served as the prince's regent. Now that the prince was 20 years old, his mother decided that he must assume his duties as king, and that meant getting married as soon as possible. The Queen Regent sent invitations to all of the available princesses in the region. She organized a grand ball so that the prince could meet the girls in a festive and comfortable atmosphere. The prince was rather picky, so the Queen Regent wanted to make sure he was in a good mood when he met the princesses. On the night of the ball, 3 princesses arrived at the castle in style. The first one arrived in a coach pulled by 2 white horses. The second arrived in a coach pulled by 4 white horses. The third arrived in a coach pulled by 8 white horses. The Queen Regent looked pleased. "I bet that one will come with a nice dowry," she said as she nudged her son. The prince simply rolled his eyes. During the ball, the prince danced with all 3 princesses, as was the custom. But he didn't show any sign of enthusiasm. The Queen Regent was worried. Afterwards, she asked her son what he thought. He said, "Those 3 were not real princesses." His mother was shocked. "Not real princesses? What do you mean? They come from the wealthiest royal families in the region." The prince explained what was wrong with the princesses. The first one stepped on his toes while they were dancing. The second didn't cover her mouth when she coughed, and the third belched during dinner. The Queen Regent was very sorry to hear that last explanation. She had really hoped that he would pick the third princess. After the failure of the ball, the Queen Regent wasn't ready to give up. She planned another grand ball. This time she would invite princesses from the whole continent. There were 9 princesses who attended. They all arrived wearing the most beautiful dresses in the kingdom. The Queen Regent thought to herself, "My son will look very good with one of them at his side." But the prince just looked and yawned. Next came dinner. All the princesses sat at a long table with the prince. The Queen Regent hoped that some witty conversation would help the prince choose a bride. Finally, the night ended with dancing and music. After it was all over, the Queen Regent asked her son what he thought. He said, "None of them were real princesses." The Queen Regent gasped. "What?" The prince then explained how each of them failed. The first 3 used way too much perfume. The second 3 did nothing but talk about themselves. And the last 3 spent most of their time looking at their pocket mirrors instead of talking to him. "They aren't real princesses," he insisted. The Queen Regent still did not give up. She prepared one last grand ball. This time she invited princesses from around the globe. 27 showed up, all from the most prestigious families in the world. They each had a servant to attend them, and they all followed the strictest rules of etiquette. The Queen Regent told her son, "Now you must choose one of these princesses. They are the most notable and refined ladies in the world. A marriage with one of them would be very good for your career." The prince sighed and said, "I guess so." At dinner, the ladies talked about fine art and philosophy, which the prince found boring and pretentious. Things got worse when it was time to dance. The ladies had all learned the latest ballroom dance moves, so the prince found it difficult to keep up. After the activities concluded, the Queen Regent hesitantly asked her son for his opinion. "They aren't real princesses," he said. The Queen Regent became angry and yelled, "What do you mean they are the finest princesses in all the world? What could possibly be wrong with them?" The prince answered, "They aren't sensitive. A real princess is sensitive." At that, the Queen Regent sat down on her sofa exhausted. She had no idea what to do. That night, there was a terrible storm. It was raining cats and dogs. Just before everyone went to bed, a guard came to the Queen Regent and announced that they had found a young girl at the gate. She was sad, wet, and alone. "The poor girl," said the prince. The Queen Regent said, "Let her in. We'll give her a place to sleep tonight." The guard escorted the girl into the palace. She met the Queen Regent and the prince. They talked for a bit, and she thanked them both for their kindness. "I know I must look very shabby, and it isn't customary for royalty to host commoners in the palace. You must be the most generous prince in all the land." After she had left the room, the prince looked at his mother and said, "I bet she's a real princess." The Queen Regent became curious. "Let's test your theory," she said to her son. "I'll place a pea under 20 mattresses, and if she is sensitive enough to feel it, then we'll know she is a true princess." The prince consented to the plan. The next morning, the girl came down to breakfast. The Queen Regent and the prince were both waiting for her anxiously. The prince asked her, "How was your sleep last night?" The girl answered, "Oh, terrible. I couldn't sleep because there was some lump under my mattress. I looked this morning and found a pea. Does anyone know how it got there? The prince smiled and said to his mother, I knew it. She is a real princess. The queen regent said, although she may not be the richest, most beautiful noble lady, if you want to marry her, I'll consent. They got married the next month and lived long, happy lives together. As for the pea, it was put in a museum where it may still be seen if no one has stolen it. Now the questions. Number 1. Why did the Queen Regent host several balls? A. She wanted to find a bride for her son. B. She wanted to find a new husband. C. She wanted to adopt a daughter. D. She wanted to celebrate her divorce. The answer is A. She wanted to find a bride for her son. Question 2. Based on the story, what 3 qualities did the Queen Regent value in a princess? A. Honesty, humility, and kindness. B. Modesty, generosity, and thoughtfulness. C. Wealth, beauty, and status. D. Sensitivity, pretentiousness, and etiquette. The answer is C, wealth, beauty, and status. Remember, this is what the Queen Regent values, not the prince. And the queen was very happy to see the wealthy princess, and she was very happy to see the beautiful princess, and she only invited the princesses with the highest status for the final ball. So those are the qualities that the queen values. Question 3. Why couldn't the girl sleep? A. She drank too much coffee. B. She was too cold. C. There was a lump under her mattress. D. There was a ghost in her room. The answer is C. There was a lump under her mattress. Question 4. How did the prince and his mother know the girl was a true princess? A. She had a royal certificate. B. Her parents came to pick her up. C. They did a DNA test. D. She passed a pee test. The answer is D. She passed the pee test. That concludes today's short story. And I hope you learned a lesson from this. The lesson, of course, being that true nobility comes from the heart, not from any title. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.